negative, then theory, then my opponent's case.
That's obvious.
This time it wasn't as obvious.
This time it wasn't as obvious.
As obvious. You can still kind of see it coming. Alright. Negate resolve. The United States is justified in intervening in the interpolitical processes of other countries to attempt to stop human rights abuses. My value for this debate will be morality, due to the fact that justifications are built upon ethical reasons. My value criterion will be primum non noroque, a Latin term meaning do no harm. Observation 1. There are 4 major methods of intervention: diplomacy, sanctions, coercive inducement, and full-scale military intervention. Contention 1. Sanctions are harmful. Sanctions may appear to be a simple economic means of preventing human rights abuses, however they cause severe harm to the people it's intending to help. McNutt in 2007 explains that harsh economic sanctions forced many desperate Iraqi women into prostitution. The sex trade grew to such an extent that in 1999 Saddam orders his parliamentary forces to crack down on it in Baghdad, resulting in the executions of many women. Families keep their girls inside, not to keep them from being assaulted, but to prevent them from being kidnapped and put into organized prostitution rings. Gangs are also forcing some families to sell their children into sex slavery. It has increased thousands of refugee women who try to escape the danger but end up out of economic desperation being prostituted in Jordan, Syria, Yemen, or other countries. The Journal of Women's Studies in 2009 concludes that the only reason no Western countries tried to stop these sanctions was that none of them felt the adverse effects suffered by the Iraqi people. Contention 2. Ground intervention makes human rights violations worse. Subpoint A, military intervention. Pham in 2006 explains that intervention can exacerbate rather than reduce the humanitarian crisis. Humanitarian military intervention can cause the very tragedies it was supposed to prevent, intensifying the level of violence within a conflict, thus increasing the domestic threat, spreading regional instability. Subpoint B, nonviolent intervention. Fickelman in 2012 explains that states where humanitarian interventions are taking place generally condemn them. They consider all actions taken by a foreign power on their soil against their expressed wishes as intervention, regardless of the motivation for action. Extreme human suffering brings about instability that endangers international peace. They might produce internal unrest, encouraging foreign intervention that would further threaten the interests of the United States. Contention 3, diplomacy is ineffective. According to Jan Edlund, American human rights lobbies are too passive. Attempts to spearhead human rights in the bilateral and multilateral relations are likely to be inconsistent, controversial, misunderstood, and in relative terms both ineffective and insufficient. Siderman in 2008 explains that diplomatic assurances do not provide an effective safeguard against serious human rights violations. Relying on diplomatic assurances would make people face a real risk of human rights violations. Contention 4, coercive action harms foreign relations. Intervention's coercive effect on the international community finds many one-time advocates arguing against United States intervention. The United States humanitarian interventions have won few friends and worsened its relationships with several powerful nations. Theory. Interpretation. A debater must slow down if asked by an opponent. Violation. I repeatedly asked my opponent to slow down and clear their speech. They did not. Standards. A. Participation. A rapid speech rate that is commonly used to prevent potential debaters from debating. The less people there are in a debate, the less it matters how constructed the debate actually is. By limiting the number of debaters, you decrease the amount of different outlets, thus stifling any education gained through a larger amount of information transferred in the round. Stephen Gardner in 2001 explained that 97 schools responded to a survey that explored why novices leave debate. The most frequently cited reasons included rapid speech delivery of junior and varsity debaters. Empirically, better speaking has been shown to solve these problems. The National Federation of State High School Association writes, Vermont has worked diligently to restore debate rules to stress the importance of eloquence and de-emphasize speed. As a result, Vermont has seen an increase in the number of schools participating in debate. Subpoint B, sponsorship. When the contemporary sponsors of policy debate were invited to watch the final round of 1979 national tournament, they found that its structure, speed, and jargon rendered it incomprehensible. In order to maintain sponsorship, the NFL introduced Lincoln Douglas debate, which consequently had turned into the exact same thing LD was created to stop: meaningless speed and jargon. Also, administrative authorities that fund debate will feel excluded and alienated by these rapid debates. This has undercut the funding of more than one debate program in the past. Voter. A, it's a priori. You need to look to the rules of debate before you can actually play the game. B, sustainability. The lack of sponsorship destroys the event by making tournaments more expensive for students, and the lack of the amount of debaters quitting due to speed makes the events exclusive and reduces membership. If debate has no members, it stops existing. Prefer a debate that's sustainable. Now, moving on to my opponent's case. Alright, as far as his framework, there's no serious problems with this. However, I'm going to actually start over on his preempts, wherever he says that I can't perm his case. Basically what he says is that because he's running a critical AF, I have to go specifically against that advocacy. However, you as the affirmative don't get the right to determine what the negative advocacy has to be. So I can still decide to run uniqueness arguments. So, even if you agree with his status and impacts, whenever he comes to solvency, whenever he places to seek and change the mindset, you can alter the mindset through intervention in the negative world. The negative world, by deciding to not intervene, decides to change the mindset of the entire world, and because it won't be United States specific, it would be a people are changing the mindset. It explicitly links out of what the affirmative tries to uphold. And furthermore, you're going to want to vote negative in this debate because of his argument about micro-political action, because if you vote for me, I will change my mindset. If you do not vote for me, I will not change my mindset. Therefore, you would have a maximum net benefit +1 if you vote for me and allow my mindset to change. The only way he's able to start gaining solvency is through changing people's mindsets. And so if he's not able to change people's mindsets like mine, then he's not going to gain access to the solvency that he wants to talk about. So basically, the permutation on his case is that I'm able to link into all of the advantages and things that he talks about, because I'm not specifically saying that you can't, that you have to keep this same methodology and these same mindsets. However, he conceded in cross-ex that you actually would have to do something else after that is done, and whenever you do that sort of thing, you link back into the same exact methodologies, because he hasn't proposed any sort of counterplan besides that. And I stand open to cross-examination for the clarification.
On the last argument, what do you mean by linking in there? What was that last argument?
The last argument was basically saying that you link into the disadvantages because you don't know what happens after your
okay, so when
after your intervention.
When we're considering calculus, if we don't know what happens afterwards, then we shouldn't consider those impact scenarios, right? Like, just for clarification purposes.
Basically, I'm saying that it's sort of like a double-bind situation, wherever even if you're able to break out and decide that you're unique, then you're going to link into the harms of being that sanctions and all of these different things. Whereas in the negative world, you don't have a zero possibility of hitting that harm because I don't link into any of the sanctions.
So the sanction. Wait.
So like different policies. It's not just sanctions.
So like sanctions are endemic of violence. Why would the AF post ideology change continue to pursue such policy? Like, why are you able to get off saying that?
The reason why I'm able to get off saying that is because you don't propose what would happen, so you can assume that anything would happen, and you can assume that because you don't know what happens after that, the 4 major methods that we currently use, we're just going to go back to that.
Okay, cool. So when you talk about on your standards, what's the big fancy word that you used? Do no harm, right?
Yes.
So how in the world can I ever link into do no harm if it's implicit that some of the things within like international intervention are going to do some form of harm?
What you would have to do is you're going to have to, what you would link into, or basically how you try to uphold this, is because you would try to say that, in fact, whenever you do invade countries, that you actually cause a good thing to happen.
I cause a good...
You have to argue that you...
So I can do harm there as long as there's a net benefit.
I'm, not exactly, but I'm saying that whenever you go...
That's fine.
I'm saying fine. Whenever you go in
so
there, you can't cause harm.
On the standards, or on the theory, right? How, like, you're trying to tell me to slow down.
Yeah.
You were the only one saying slow down, right? Like, you were the only person.
Yes.
Okay, none of the judges... I want to just make sure. Like, for sure, none of the judges said slow down, right? Did you hear that?
Yeah.
Okay.
There are no judges, just me.
Okay.
Just me. I'm the debater sustaining the debate, as in, if people like me stop debating, the debate ceases to exist.
Where are we?
We're at debate camp. Which I'm gonna,
Okay, wait.
Can I elaborate?
Don't we have national circuits nowadays?
Yes, we do.
How long would it take for this theoretical justification to change?
This theoretical
Do you
justification.
think that we could do it in less than a year?
If people hear, yeah, definitely.
Less than a 1
If
year.
people hear about,
So you think we can
if
change
people
the
hear that you
TOC
get
speed?
voted, yes, if you hear people getting voted down by every speed K, people are going to stop running it, even if
Have
they
speed
think,
Ks been run in the past?
I don't know, I don't have knowledge of that. I've never seen a speed K run. I'm a maverick.
Starting prep.